Metzer Farms specializes in waterfowl, but today we are going to be focusing on how to care for baby ducks. For those who are on the fence about adding ducks to their homestead, what attracts you to ducks?
They have a larger, more nutritious egg that's really great for baking. They also are considered cute and fun, and people just like the pleasure of owning a duck. They are less aggressive, so you can have the males on your homestead as well. A domestic duck won't fly away, so it'll stay on your property. The only breeds that we sell that can fly are the Muscovy and the mallard. Call ducks as well will be a flying breed, but most domestic ducks will stay inside your fence and stay on your property.
Welcome to the Mother Earth News and Friends podcast. At Mother Earth News for 50 years and counting, we've been dedicated to conserving the planet's natural resources while helping you conserve your financial resources. In this podcast, we host conversations with experts in the fields of sustainability, homesteading, natural health, and more to share all about how you can live well wherever you are in a way that values both people and our Mother Earth. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, Brinzea. That's BRINSEA, Chick Incubation Specialists. They've been focusing on egg incubator design continuously since 1976, resulting in egg incubators, chick brooders, and incubation accessories. They offer unparalleled practicality, reliability, superior hatch rates, and healthy chicks. Innovation you can trust.
Good day, everyone. I am Kenny Coogan, and joining me is John and Mark Metzer, father and son duo. Metzer Farms is under their leadership, with Mark being a third-generation duck farmer. John's father started selling ducklings and eggs in the early 70s, and John turned it into a business when he graduated college in 1978. Also joining us today is Mark's wife, Katie. Today we are talking about how to care for baby ducks. Welcome to the podcast, John, Mark, and Katie. We are excited to have all three of you joining us today. John, can you tell us where Metzer Farms are located?
Our original location was in California. We are still in California, Central California, about 2 hours south of San Francisco. And then 2 years ago, we built a new hatchery in Memphis, Tennessee, to take advantage of postal shipping and reducing expenses. So we have two locations, one in California, one in Tennessee.
And Metzer Farms specializes in waterfowl, but today we are going to be focusing on how to care for baby ducks. So let's first talk about mail-ordered ducklings. Now, before the podcast started, John, I was telling Mark that in middle school, I placed an order of black runner ducks and blue runner ducks, two varieties, and I was so excited I had a camcorder set up in the brooder to record their arrival. And I would play this unedited 20-minute video to everyone who visited my house for the next 3 months, even though the actual ducklings were in the garage right next door. So prior to the ducklings' arrival, other than a camcorder, what type of things and warm environments do ducklings need?
Mark?
Yeah, I get that question asked often, is how do we care for baby ducks? And there's certain aspects that are really important. That's heat. You need a preheated brooder for the ducks when they arrive. You need your water ready and your feed ready, plus the bedding. So for the brooder, we typically like to use shavings or some type of straw as the floor, because if they spill water or anything like that, we like it to soak through. And with shavings, you could always sprinkle it on top if the shavings get wet. For feeders, any feeder would do that you would find at a feed store, and all feed stores nowadays have the appropriate feed for waterfowl. They typically have an all flock or something specifically for waterfowl starter feed. So you can get the feed there. And then some type of heat source. So whether it be a heat lamp, or now they have heat plates And I've used both, and both work really well for ducks and geese.
So listeners of the podcast are probably familiar with baby chicks needing about 95 degrees for the first week, and then you reduce it maybe by 5 degrees every week. What are the temperature requirements or range for baby ducks?
I would say they're very similar. That's sort of a guideline, but then really you just need to watch the birds. If they're under the heat lamp a lot, then they need to be warmer. If they're staying away from the heat lamp, then raise the heat lamp. The best thing is really not a thermometer, it's observing the birds. If you've got a lot of them, let's say 10 or more, some should be eating, some should be drinking, some should be sort of playing, and some should be sleeping at all times. If you see them panting with their mouth open, then it's a little warm. So the best way to gauge it is to monitor them with a camcorder, or if you walk in and look at them, is preferably best. The only thing I would add with the brooding would be the water for baby ducks. And maybe you were going to ask about that, but the major difference between baby ducklings and chicks is that water is a lot more to a duck than a chicken. They like to play in it. They'll soften their food in it. When they're older, they'll mate in it. They do all sorts of things in the water, and the droppings are wetter. So really the biggest thing when you're brooding a baby duck is to be aware of water. So the best thing is if you can put their wire up on top of a 1/2-inch hardwood cloth floor with a pan under it or something like that. So any spillage from their water goes into that pan and not into the litter. The whole pan will stay much drier. We follow this all the way through with young birds to breeders. If you can get their water above a floor where the water can go through and they can't make a mess of it, it's much better. The other thing you can do with the water to keep them out of it is to raise it up, because it should be at about neck height. So a little water that you get at the store that it's a spin-on type, typically a red bottom, quart top, put it on a little 2x6, raise it up several inches. And then they walk up and drink out of it, much less likely to step in it. And then just keep raising that as they grow so that they're never tempted to get into it. The biggest difference in my perspective between ducks and chickens is the usage and challenges of water.
When they arrive in the mail, do you recommend dipping their beaks in the water?
Yes, every one of them, because that is the critical nutrient at that point is water. So yes, dip their beak in water. If you see any that appear to be sleepy, those are probably a bit dehydrated. So be especially aware of any that are sleepy and to keep an eye on them. They're not sleepy, they're dehydrated. So continue to go dip their beak in water maybe every hour for several hours.
And do you recommend adding anything to the water for the first 24 hours?
Well, Mark, or Katie, did you want to talk about our new vitamin pack?
Sure, I'll talk about it. I'm really excited. John has been working with a nutritionist to develop a supplement for their water called Vitamets that is specifically formulated for waterfowl that will have vitamins and minerals, electrolytes, and probiotics to really help give your birds that boost that it needs after any period of stress, such as transporting them, or if there's a predator that gets into their coop, or just a few times a month to give them this little boost. It's aimed at having a healthier flock, happier birds, and more eggs. So we're really excited to be in the final stages of getting that ready to bring to market.
And when they arrive, do they need any assistance fighting their food? Or do we really just need to worry about dipping their beaks in the water?
Typically, I've never seen them have trouble finding the food, especially because people's brooders are fairly small, and so they're gonna run into that feed. Now, for us, when we hatch our breeders and we'll put them in a bigger brooder barn, we have the feed spread out throughout the barn, much more than when after a week. So the first day we have egg cartons or egg crates that we're pouring the feed on and just putting those all over the floor so that they're going to be forced to run into the feed. We don't ever take them to the feed.
And I know there's bantam ducks and then you got heavy weights. How much space do ducklings need in a brooder? Let's say you're going to order 12 ducklings or, a dozen ducklings. What are some good size requirements for them?
The ducks, one of the things about ducks is they grow quite rapidly. And bouncing back a little bit to your temperature requirements, or whether when I was talking earlier about that ducks don't require heat as long as chickens do. If somebody got 12, I would probably start out with a space that's 2 feet by 3 feet. So you're looking at about a half a square foot a bird, and that will grow fairly quickly. I would say a 2 feet by 3 feet, which is 6 square feet, you got 12 baby birds. That will probably last for 7 to 10 days. And at that point, you're going to need more room. So again, it's sort of a ballpark. It's a visual kind of thing, but that's a starting point. Now, to answer your question, in our facilities where we've got lots of birds, you can say, well, they need X number of square feet. But if you've only got 2 birds, you can't say, well, they get 4 square feet, because then they're just really cramped. So you can't take commercial numbers and apply them to backyard numbers, because it doesn't work. You just have to almost judge what looks well for them. You don't want to be adding bedding every day to keep it dry.
Can you talk a little bit more about what to feed ducklings, as that's like a super big topic? Can you talk to us about medicated feed, non-medicated feed? When can we start feeding them greens?
So we don't feed our ducks or waterfowl any medicated feed. My understanding is that today it's okay if you have medicated feed. My understanding is that it's okay to feed them to ducks, and that's not a problem. We don't do it, and we prefer just the non-medicated starter feed for the first 3 or 4 weeks with higher protein. And then after that, we step it down to a what we call a grower feed. And we'll continue to feed that up to the age of 20 weeks. If you have females and you're wanting eggs, that's when we will turn it over to a layer feed with a bit more calcium, and then we'll have them in egg production for pretty much as long as they're willing to lay eggs for us, which for ducks, some of the breeds, they will lay nearly all year long.
I just got 4 pecans maybe in June. They were like 6 weeks old, and I've been getting 4 eggs a day since probably August, and we're recording in the middle of the winter. So I'm quite happy with them.
And let me, if I can jump in about the medicated, because it's sort of an old wives' tale, I believe, because I'm sure that probably 40 or 50 years ago, medication was put into the feed that was not good for ducks. And there weren't many people that had ducks, so it wasn't a problem. But now I believe the coccidiostat, which is typically the medication that's in a starter feed, is fine for waterfowl. I remember Dave Holderried, famous waterfowl breeder, did some research quite a while ago, and he grew ducks with medicated and non-medicated, and they grew perfectly well with medicated feed. So I'm sure that the non-medicated was true 50 years ago. It is no longer true. So if your choice is medicated feed that's the proper nutrition or non-medicated that is wrong, take the medicated feed, because you want the proper nutrition. It's not going to hurt them at all. It is an old wives' tale, but you can use the medicated feed for waterfowl. Don't use it if you don't need it, but go ahead.
Yeah. And thank you, John, for that plug, because if listeners would like to learn how to raise geese, they can head over to another podcast where I interview Dave Holderried.
Here we go. What a link.
Yeah. So we're kind of talking about some medications and things. A lot of people, I'm assuming, are more familiar with chickens. And when you buy baby chicks, they're often vaccinated for Marek's disease. and Merrick's disease virus cost the poultry industry about $1 billion a year from unvaccinated birds. Do we need to worry about baby ducklings or geese being vaccinated for anything?
We don't vaccinate at this point for marriage. That's not a waterfowl disease. We're considering vaccinating for salmonella just as a general precaution, which is for anybody and everywhere. Salmonella is everywhere. Poultry can carry it. And if we can reduce the incidence of salmonella in our birds or getting into our birds or being introduced into our birds, that's what we're seriously considering, just to make it a better bird for our customers when they arrive. It would be no extra expense or anything. It'd be just something we would be doing.
We do vaccinate our breeders, and that is a multi-step vaccine plan that we're doing. But the what my dad's referring to is vaccinating the day-old birds that we would be shipping out.
So for chickens, you can order a straight run, which is a mix of males and females, or you can just get females, or you can just get males. Can you order sexed ducklings?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's something that we're really proud of here at Metzer Farms. We have a great team that sexes the day-old ducklings. And so they're doing event sex where they're exposing if there's a penis or not. Duck terminology for that, but to sex the male and the female so that we can offer our customers the option to buy their ducklings sexed. We also added an egg layer assortment last year that is just females of our 3 best egg layers, the khaki Campbell, the white layer, and the golden 300. And some people don't know golden 300 and white layer were actually developed by John Metzer at Metzer Farms. So that's an exciting addition that we had in the world of ducks. So offering sex ducklings is something we're really proud of.
There is a video on YouTube that teaches you how to sex day-old birds. It's a video my dad did a long time ago, but nothing's changed since then. It still works. And it's actually a really good video. I know people that have trained themselves watching that video and doing it.
Can you talk a little bit more about those 3 egg-laying duck breeds? What do they look like? How much do they weigh? How many eggs do they make a year?
The khaki Campbell is a heritage breed of duck that was developed in Europe specifically for egg production, I think in the early 1900s. And they are very good at egg laying. And probably 25 years ago, I'm guessing, we wanted to develop a duck that was feather sexable, and the eggs were a little bit larger. And so we did some crossing of different breeds, including the khaki Campbell, to produce our golden 300. And that was a duck that the males would hatch in shades of black and the females shades of brown. We've done some genetics since then, so that's not totally true anymore. The females are always brown, and that's what most people want. And then we had some people that wanted a white bird. And so we took it the next step and produced the white layer. The production for both of them is the same. I believe one of them, I don't remember which, I think it's a golden lays a couple percentage more of green eggs than the other one, but it's not a huge amount. But raised properly and in the right environment, they will lay you 300 eggs in a year. They just keep on laying. That's their goal in life. And so the khaki Campbell egg is, and I don't know what an ounce is, but probably the average weight is 75 grams, whereas the white layer and the goldens are probably in the 82 to 85 grams. So it's a larger egg for some of those customers that want a larger egg that they're selling. So we've got the 3 types for egg production.
And are those birds like 7 pounds, 10 pounds?
No, as adults, the females are probably 4.5, 4 3/4 pounds. They're not big birds by any means. No, they're sort of comparable to the white leghorn in the chicken world, a lighter body weight, so that all the reserves are sort of going into laying eggs.
Sometimes there's like 2 camps of thinking. Some people want 20 identical birds, and other people want 20 birds, but each one of them looks different. Is it safe to mix and match duckling breeds when you're ordering? So what comes to my mind is like those cute Australian spotted ducks and English call ducks, and then the huge meat production Muscovian pecans. Do you need to worry about them all being in a little container being shipped, or even raising them in the same brooder?
They ship well together. We are hatching and shipping call ducks this year, which is really exciting for us. And the proportion of the baby call duck isn't the same proportion of a pecan baby duck. They're closer in size amongst themselves, and so we don't have any problem shipping. We assign a value of the size of each bird. So depending on how many of specific types of ducks you order is how we determine what size of box to use. And if we use heat pot packs or insulation and all that. So we do our homework on figuring out the best way to pack it, even taking into consideration the zip code of the customer and the weather at that zip code. So we'll factor in the weather there. We're here in Memphis, so the weather in Memphis. So we're taking in multiple considerations when shipping the ducks.
I just wanted to add, Kenny, that ducks are much less aggressive. You were asking about having 20 different breeds as adults running around together. That is not a problem with ducks. They are much less aggressive than chickens are in pecking orders, roosters being dominant, etc. So I would guess it's much less of a problem. Where you may have a problem is if you have too many males for the number of females. Depending on the size of the group, you want to have obviously more females than males. But in terms of breeds, they all coexist quite well.
And to learn more about the twisted sex lives of ducks, you can go over to our sister publication, Backyard Poultry. All right, we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsor. And when we return, we will be talking about natural brooding.
Brinzy products are designed to be long-lasting and energy efficient. Their advanced series incubators and brooders feature the latest state-of-the-art digital control systems, providing instant readings of temperature and humidity to ensure successful hatches and healthy chicks. Check out Brinzy incubators and more at brinzy.com. That's www.brinsea.com.
We are back with John and Mark and Katie Metzer of Metzer Farms. Now, we have all heard of broody hens. Are there duck breeds that rear ducklings better than others? And also joining us, Katie has brought a little feathered friend. And what breed is that?
This is a call duck. This is our second week ever hatching call ducks. So we're very excited about it. So they hatched pretty well, and we're setting eggs each week, and we're excited about expanding the offering, and we're shipping them to California because we're hatching them in Tennessee right now.
And what color call ducks do you have?
We have 7 different colors. We have pastel, gray, snowy. We have black, blue, and that was the white.
All right. So are there duck breeds that rear ducklings or go broody? Or do all of them go broody?
Well, I would say they all go broody. The ones that are best at raising their own are Muscovies. They do an excellent job of hatching their own and raising them up. If you are harvesting them or weaning them or taking the babies, they'll probably do 3 or 4 hatches a year. Just be aware that Muscovies are genetically different than most other ducks. So incubation time is 5 weeks. Don't get impatient if they don't hatch at 4 weeks, because it does take 5 weeks for Muscovies. But of all the ducks we have, and I'm sure most of all domestic ducks, the Muscovies are the best. Now, about everybody else, all of the mallard derivative breeds, there's some breeds you think, oh, that's probably been bred out of them. And then you have a customer say, oh, I had a runner duck and she raised a whole flock. So I don't know, once you get past the Muscovies, I don't know if there's a difference among the other breeds on how well they can raise. Some get more broody than others, meaning that they want to set on the eggs when there's no eggs there.
I visited a vineyard in South Africa that has 2,000 runner ducks and 500 geese, and they move them through the vineyard at 500 birds at a time. And I remember those runner ducks, they would be eating their snails and slugs, lay an egg mid-walk. They would be walking and just drop an egg and keep walking.
They'll do it in the water too. If they're swimming around and it's time to lay an egg, they're going to go, do I want to get out of the water or do I just do it here? I'll do it here. And they lay their egg and keep swimming. So those are probably less broody in general because they've lost such an instinct. They don't even care about where that egg is laid.
They cannot be bothered.
That's right.
Can ducks foster other ducklings or breeds? Can you stick different eggs underneath them? Can you stick baby chicks underneath them?
Obviously, other breeds, yes, that shouldn't be a problem. Obviously, as I said before, you don't want to mix Muscovy eggs and Mallard or Pekin eggs. But once they hatch, the mother doesn't care what breed it is, what color it is. She knows those are hers. And I don't have any direct experience, but I've seen lots of places where a chicken is hatched a duck or a duck is hatched a chicken, and they're raising it fine. So I don't have any direct experience because we don't do any natural brooding here. It's just feedback from customers and experiences years ago before we were commercial.
All right, the last question for today is, after people have successfully raised their mail order ducks, next year when they have adult ducks and they start laying eggs and the eggs start hatching, are there any precautions or things that they have to consider to manage the mother duck and the ducklings?
The first thing that comes to my mind is predators. Just watch out for predators. If you have them in a pen or something, it's not something that the baby could get out of, but not the mother, or vice versa. If you have a kiddie pool, have a ramp for the ducks to be able to walk up and out of the kiddie pool. They're not going to be able to jump. So it's those types of precautions that I'd be more concerned about. Ducks, especially the first year, will just lay eggs all year. So they could be laying eggs when it's really cold out. And naturally, in nature, ducks aren't hatching their baby ducks during the dead of winter, whereas your duck might be doing that. So that's where you would want to bring them into your garage or give them some supplemental heat than just leaving it totally up to the mother.
I think chickens are kind of the gateway to homesteading and keeping poultry. For those who are on the fence about adding ducks to their homestead, what attracts you to ducks other than the long line of family members raising ducks?
Well, I can speak to that one because I'm new to the family. So marrying Mark, it was a whole new world of ducks. And even, people ask me like, why would you get a duck? Learning about the advantages, they have a larger, more nutritious egg that's really great for baking. A lot of bakeries will really seek these eggs, or fine restaurants. They also are considered cute and fun, and people just like the pleasure of owning a duck. They are less aggressive, like John mentioned earlier, so you can have the males on your homestead as well. They don't fly. A domestic duck won't fly away, so it'll stay on your property. The only breeds that we sell that can fly are the Muscovy and the Mallard. Call ducks as well will be a flying breed, but most domestic ducks will stay inside your fence and stay on your property.
They're hardier than a chicken, so they're gonna do better in the cold weather if you're in a cold part of the country. And the diseases, I mean, we just don't see diseases come through our ducks or our flocks or anything like that. I think they're an easier bird to manage, more hands off.
Yeah, and two other things there, that they typically lay their eggs early in the morning. So if you go to let them out at 7 in the morning, if you've got a pen or something or a pasture, they probably already laid their eggs in their pen. And so you're not going to be searching the pasture for their eggs, whereas a chicken lays throughout the day. And the other thing, which is sort of minor, but they sort of hang together. It's a little easier to move a flock of ducks than a flock of chickens because they do form a group as you move them. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is that people just enjoy them. They seem to be more entertaining and disease-free is probably the biggest two reasons, but all of them we've listed are true for ducks.
And their
Alright.
foraging abilities too, right? We forgot to
Yeah.
mention that, the slugs and the snails, like you mentioned.
Yes. All right, very good. And Mark mentioned that you guys have snowy call ducks, and there's lots of different duck breeds that you guys can go search out, and they're all beautiful, and they produce eggs. All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Mother Earth News and Friends. To listen to more podcasts and get connected on our social media, visit motherearthnews.com/podcast. You can also email us at podcast@ogdenpubs.com with any questions or suggestions. Our podcast production team includes Jessica Anderson, Kenny Coogan, and Alyssa Warner. Music for this episode is Hustle by Kevin MacLeod. The Mother Earth News and Friends podcast is a production of Ogden Publications. Thanks again to Brinzy, our sponsor for this Mother Earth News and Friends podcast episode. You too can experience the Brinzy difference and maximize your hatch rates with Brinzy incubators that monitor temperature and humidity and are made of antimicrobial materials. Brinzy ships worldwide and provides stellar customer support to answer all your questions. Hatch your chicks with Brinzy, the leader in innovative incubation research. Learn more at brinzy.com. Again, that's www.brinsea.com. Until next time, don't forget to love your mother.